The following program was made possible thanks to the generous support of our Kickstarter backers.
Well, first Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired.
Sup, Holmes?
Beware your host, Jonathan Holmes!
Hey everybody, it's Jonathan Holmes. I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to shave, though I think I'm pulling it off. Maybe. Sort of a Jason Statham if he were beige and out of shape look I'm going for today with you. Felix, you're finally on the show. This is so exciting.
Yeah, I made it. Thanks for inviting me over.
My pleasure. You are of Broken Rules, the video game developer.
Yeah, video game developer based in Vienna, Austria. Been around for a bit now.
I didn't realize you were out of Austria, and you...
No? Yeah.
No, I didn't. Now I know. I think you probably even told me. And
well, I told you I'm in Central European time zone, but so there's a lot of cities that could be. But yeah, I'm in Vienna, Austria. Yeah.
And here you are talking to us today. The first game of yours I ever played was And Yet It Moves on WiiWare.
On WiiWare. Okay, yeah,
yes,
cool. Yeah.
I started with the WiiWare version, and for people who haven't played it, very interesting physics and world controlling platformer. All the graphics made out of what looks like scanned-in paper. A lot of the sound effects sounded like they were done with just someone making sounds with their mouth into a microphone. And you get to turn the whole world while you try to traverse the world. A lot of fun.
Cool. Thanks. Good to hear that you like it. And yeah, it's actually the sounds were made. Well, most of them were made by Christoph, who was the sound designer, music guy, and he actually talked like such in a microphone. And that sound was kind of iconic for the game. And I think we might have even put it in one of the later games, kind of an Easter egg thing.
Oh, really? I'll have to look for that. So was that the first game that Broken Rules had put out?
It was definitely the first game that Broken Rules put out, yeah, and it was also the first real game I worked on, and most of my colleagues worked on. So, And Yet It Moves started at University of Technology in Vienna. It was kind of our bachelor thesis project, and we had a lot of fun doing it. We had great, teachers, mentors, guiding us, giving us constraints, which is always the most important, to have good constraints. We had like a little prototype, which we submitted to IGF, to the student showcase, and it was part of it in 2007, which is 2007, it's like 9 years ago, right? No.
Yeah, almost 10.
Yeah, it's 9 years
ago.
So,
and the game was released in 2009?
Yeah,
2009. And then, remember, I don't know if the WiiWare version came out that year. I think that took a little
I think it was actually 2010 that the
WiiWare. That's what I remember.
It took us almost a year to port it over, I think, but it was our first console game, the WiiWare version. So.
Pretty cool. So do you think you would have made a game with paper being the primary material that the graphics are made out of if you were working on your first definitely commercial game? Or do you think that it was in college? And you said that one of the good things about making the game in college and having mentors was they put restraints on you. Sounds like if it weren't for that, you might have just gone completely wild in any given direction. And even so,
or maybe 3D render it all or something like that. But yeah.
But all the same, it does
probably not.
Yeah, it seems like a slightly, or maybe more than slightly, unrestrained game. You don't see games that take the risk on making the graphics out of little men, hand-drawn on paper, sketchy little folks trying to survive in a world of bushes made out of construction paper. Not your everyday thing. So did you feel if there was like money on the line back then, do you think you would have taken that kind of risk?
We definitely didn't think about money back then. Like what we thought about is that we make a prototype that is so good that we can use it in our portfolio, and we can maybe use it to get better jobs afterwards. And what we also wanted to do is to have it part of the IGF student showcase. I think we had that on plan pretty early on, so that's what we thought about, but we originally didn't think we will make it a full game out of it. And the thing about the paper graphics is that it just happened because we didn't have any artists on the team. So we were all programmers, for programmers. And we were kind of we were kind of aesthetically minded in the sense that we knew what kind of looks good, but we couldn't produce it in a way. So we were looking for something that we can use, that we can build, and that still looks good. And when we searched for inspiration, we found a movie from an Austrian director called Copy Shop, I think, or Fast Film. I don't know. I think Fast Film was it, and it was actually a movie made out of paper and collage stuff. And we thought, hey, that's something we might be able to do as well. So we started cutting out paper, scanning in paper, and then taking pictures and masking it in the computers over it, so it looked like all of the stuff was actually ripped out. But we just ripped out like template papers, and then we masked photos and put them in the game, like digitally put them together so it looked out. And that worked out. Like every one of us could build levels that kind of looked good and interesting, and it was definitely interesting to look at and something kind of fresh and new. And then everything kind of came together. We knew what we have to focus on is the whole analog stuff, right? Like analog feeling. That's also why the sounds were made with the mouth, because it had this whole DIY thing in a sense.
So a feeling of being organic, being something you could reach out and touch in a tactile way. Who did the drawing of the main character? Like, they are an artist.
That's true. That was actually none of our team. So that's the one thing that we outsourced to a friend of one of the team, friend of Peter, and I don't know what he actually did. Maybe he was a graphic designer or something, but he started drawing this character. I think in the prototype that we had at IGF, we still had a character drawn by one of the team, by Jan. But then afterwards, we decided, okay, now we need to, now that we want to make a real full game for it, we need to have at least a good-looking main character.
Interesting. Okay, so that wasn't one of your team.
No,
that was outsourced. That was one thing.
I think it was the one thing that was outsourced, maybe. I think that's it. I think for the WiiWare launch, we had a PR team that helped us, and I guess that was it, in a sense. The one thing more, for the Wii version, we were really running into like memory problems, because like this was our first game we made, and we made it with an engine called Torque Game Builder. I think it's not around anymore. And we didn't really know, like we learned programming on university, obviously, because it was a programmer's course, but it's still something else if you really program something for the first time, like a full game. And so there was a lot of stuff that was not really programmed very well or not that great. So we had a few memory leaks. And then we got help from a fellow Austrian developer, kind of like, I don't know how do you say, triple A thing, like a bigger studio, but and he helped us like iron out some of the memory issues on the Wii version.
So making WiiWare games was a very well-known challenge for both the reasons you spoke of, the memory issues. What languages you could use for WiiWare was always kind of shrouded in mystery. How did you go about getting the WiiWare version done? What made you want to do it? And then how did you actually go about doing this thing, which was quite difficult, all told?
Yeah, so we finished and yet it moves in 2009. So after the prototype, there was still time where we studied. Like I did a master after my programming studies in Vienna. I did a master in the Netherlands in Hilversum, a master in game design and development. And we kind of worked on it yet it moves then, but like only on the weekends and stuff. And then when I got back to Vienna in summer of 2008, we sat down and worked full time on it. Finished it in 2009 and had it in a few festivals, like at Indicate. I think it was in Culver City twice. We went there as well, which was great. Like Indicate is really great festival. A long trip, of course, for us from Austria, but yeah. And Indicate also has the showcases at E3. We didn't go there, but they showed, and yet it moves there. And Mr. Dan Edelman, who you might know, maybe, I don't know, but
I do.
Dan Edelman was like the indie guy of Nintendo back in the days. Have you heard of him?
Oh, sure. He was on the show shortly after he left Nintendo.
Oh, yeah.
We talk still pretty regularly on Twitter and whatnot. He's representing Axiom Verge now,
Yeah,
which
and
is coming
Chasm.
to you pretty soon. And Chasm, yes, indeed.
Oh, Chasm, yeah.
So this was back when I do that all the time. So this is back when he was at Nintendo. You weren't there, but he saw your game at E3 and then helped get it on WiiWare.
Yeah, and then he wrote us an email. It's like, hey, you want to bring NEI moves to WiiWare? You think it would be a great fit? And we were like, yeah, sure. I mean, of course. It's like, I mean, I'm a big fan of the Wii. Like I played a lot of Wii games, and also during studies, we've regularly, I think every day after lunch break, we played Wii tennis. So that was like, while developing and yet it moves, the Wii was always around in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that wasn't really like I really wanted to do it also to see how we can map the controls of and yet it moves to the Wii remote. So we immediately said yes, and Dan was helpful in all the stuff of getting stuff set up. Like we were working in a shared office and stuff like that. It's always Nintendo was more strict back then than it is right now, but like we had to make sure that it's an office where nobody can come in and see the dev kit and stuff like that.
Oh, right. It's not with the Office. So the Office rule was about Nintendo secrecy around their dev kit. It sounds like. I never got a clear answer as to why they were so like uptight about.
Well, I'm not 100% sure about that, but that was my feeling about it, because like that's like the secret things that we have in the office from them, right? Like
right.
It's like a big warning of never opening them up or reverse engineering or something like that, right? They're afraid of the hardware is what they sell. They're a hardware company, so
sure.
That's what's the important precious thing from them. But yeah, with Dan Edelman's help, we could set all of this up, and luckily the engine we used had a Wii port. Like they had ported it to Wii, but it was kind of a semi-released status, and I think there was like 2 or 3 other studios using it or something like that next to us. So it was not very not very well cared for.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And also I think that the company Garage Games was what they called. I think they don't exist anymore, but they were getting into troubles and so on. So we were kind of like, we had a base of the engine that ran on Wii, and it was easy to get the first few levels running on Wii, but then we immediately had like performance issues and stuff like that. So that's what basically kept us for a long time, and we had like the base engine, but we had to do most of the engineering ourselves. And that was really kind of it just like, okay, we were students, then we made a full game. That was already the first step, but then bringing this game to a console was like the real step of feeling like, okay, now we're really getting professional at this, and it's really challenging. And but we learned a lot, and we also felt that afterwards, like releasing and yet it moves for WiiWare kind of like put us on the next level of a studio, in a sense that, okay, like you release a game on PC, that's cool, but once you release the game on console, you're taking it a bit more seriously, or you get contacted by different people and things like that. Yeah,
Absolutely, and it's definitely changed the way I thought of your studio from the outset. I
yeah.
thought,
See, it reached you as well, right?
yeah, it works. It made me. It's similar to the whole Office thing. I always guessed that the reason Nintendo wanted you to have an office is if you have an office, you're like serious, and if you don't have an office, you're kind of a whatever. And if you put a game on consoles, then you're definitely serious. To me, you're willing to put in the time, the effort, and you also believe in your product enough to think it can survive on that marketplace. Anyone who had the guts to put their game out on WiiWare back in the days, I thought they were either like incredibly confident or extremely naive, or maybe both. I don't know.
I think we were both, actually. I mean, we were definitely naive in kind of what we expected, but we were also in a good position because back then we were still pretty young, and like our living expenses were not that high. We could, like, we had a kind of cheap sub rent in the office, and yet it moves. What I also didn't say before is that for the PC release, we had a subsidy from Austria, basically like a public grant, and that paid us a bit during development. So we didn't have any debts or something that we had to put into the original development. And yet it moves on PC made some money. So we were kind of in a safe harbor, I could say. So we were like, yeah, let's try out the Wii thing, and because we really want to do it, and we put a lot of effort in the controls. Now I would say way too much effort, because in the end it probably wasn't worth it, but it was fun to do, and it was also great to learn stuff like that. And that's because it was the main reason why I wanted to bring the game to the Wii, was the controls. So we put a lot of effort in it.
For people who haven't played it, you can tilt, if I remember correctly, it's been a little while. Yeah. You control the character with the well-known Nintendo Entertainment System style layout with the control pad and the buttons to move and jump. But then you can turn the world too, and you have to turn the world in order to survive. They did a similar thing with one of my favorite PSP games called Loco Roco, where you turn the world with the. But I always thought that would have been so much better with motion control. When I see people play Loco Roco, they end up tilting anyway. So the game takes to your natural urge to like move your whole body when you get that immersed in the events on screen, and rewards you for doing it. And in fact, tasks you to do it properly. I thought the controls turned out great, and the whole time I've been hoping, because you guys didn't close after that. Like, that wasn't the final Broken Rules game. You've come out with a couple of games since then. So I hoped that the WiiWare version was a success and you guys like made money. Is that what happened?
We didn't, like, it wasn't, I think it wasn't a financial success. Like, we did make some money back in the days. Back then, Nintendo also had a threshold. So
did you beat the threshold at least?
We at least hit the threshold. Exactly.
Nice. Yeah, because a lot of great
was
games
really close, I think, because the threshold is, if I remember correctly, was like 2 years or something like that. You had to hit it, or it was all gone. And I think we made it pretty close. Also with the help of the guys at Nintendo, like featuring it on the store and stuff like that. So, but like I said before, it wasn't financially a success, but it was still professionally a success, because it was really a push forward for the studio and something that we could put in our credit, in a sense, right?
Sure.
So after And Yet It Moves, for we kind of grew the company. Well, we took in two more co-founders, two more shareholders, Martin and Clemens. So now we are 5 co-founders after the Wii version, and we started working on new projects and wanted to do something different. Like, we were all fed up with And Yet It Moves.
But And Yet It Moves did eventually come to smartphones as well, right?
Yeah, last year.
Oh, cool. I didn't realize it was that recent. And there was a slight name change. One of our commenters on Destructoid actually noticed. They were
Yeah,
like, what?
actually, so and Yet It Moves. Oh, it's called Yet It Moves on iOS. So it was published by a Japanese company called DNA.
Huh. Oh, yeah. They're a big deal. They recently, I think, partnered with Nintendo.
Yeah, they developed the Nintendo mobile apps. Yeah,
Sure.
Which was fun. Like our work, I think our project was pretty much wrapped up when the news came out. Like that DNA is going to do Nintendo things. I was like, hey guys, if you need any developer for Nintendo IP stuff, I'm all for it. But it didn't happen. But yeah,
sure. So was it DNA's decision to change the name? Our commenter mentioned, he's like, what? You can't call it Yet It Moves. It sounds like Yeti Moves. We can't have a game about Yetis moving, or at least sell it that way. But I think it's a fine name either way. So
it's a fine way. They said it was a legal decision. Like their legal department said there's something on some app called And Yet It Moves out there, and they didn't want to take the risk. But,
oh, really? Interesting. Yeah. I assumed it was because you're not supposed to start a sentence with the word "and."
Oh yeah, That's not a good thing for English speaking.
No, it's a faux pas.
Okay.
I think it worked great in your game. It speaks to the name and the whole game speaks to this idea of like not knowing exactly what happens next, and you're already in the middle of something that's constantly changing and unpredictable. And the more I hear about where you were at in your career when you were doing it, you were kind of looking before you were leaping constantly and hoping the world would shift around what your plans were, and hopefully you would land on your feet instead of just breaking into a million pieces if you didn't hit the ground correctly. Yeah. I mean, you were constantly in a state of risk while you were making this thing.
We were, but it was a very, how do you say, like motivating time back then, like inspirational time. Like everybody's like, oh, indie games, and people start to notice indie games, and the big industry wants to have more indie games in there. It really did feel like this is the time window, the time frame to try and experiment building your own games, because everybody was like, hey, now it's happening and you can actually do it. And like I said, we went to GDC back in 2007 and then Indiecade. So we met up with a few other developers, and they were all such a nice, helpful, friendly scene. So it although it was risky, it never really felt that risky in a sense. It was just like, hey, we can do it. Let's try it, and whatever. I mean, if we fail, we fail, but now is the time. Now is the time, and so we jumped on it, I guess.
Interesting. So if And Yet It Moves were a game that felt serious all of the time, it would have been a very different potential metaphor for the experience you were going through. But it was just paper. It's like, oh, the paper guy fell apart. We'll just try again.
Yeah, and it's really a trial and error game, right? Like,
big time.
We called it, I think, learning by dying.
Which is what you guys were going through while you were.
Exactly. Yeah, we were just going with the flow, and it worked out most of the time. But like after Yet It Moves, so when we started going bigger, we were kind of still in this rolling mood, and we were like, okay, now we're gonna team up we're gonna get an artist on the team. Because, wow, that's a good idea if you develop games, right? So we did a game jam. Actually, I found Clemens. Clemens is our artist now. He's still on the team, and he's the one I'm working on a new game right now as well. But back then, I found out that there's this guy in Vienna who worked on a game with Adam Saltzman, Adam Atomic. Sure. And Alec Hawalka and someone else, like people I met over the ocean, right, in North America, and like who were kind of like, like indie heroes in a sense, right? So it's like, oh my God, there's someone in Vienna who's actually worked on indie games, and so we set up a game jam and invited him to jam with us. And
Who was it? Was it?
It was great.
Who was the artist? I feel
Oh,
like
he's called Clemens. Clemens Scott.
Oh, Clement. I'm sorry. We were so
Yeah,
sorry.
Clemens Scott. He's still like he's now a co-founder of Broken Rules and still part of it. But because it just worked out really well working with him, and he was also so he liked indie games. He already worked on indie games. He's like, yeah, if you want me in the company, I'll jump on the boat and take the risk and run with you. So
Wow.
that was cool.
Did he do the art on Chasing Aurora?
Yeah, he did the art on Chasing Aurora and Rayticon, and now on our next game, Old Man's Journey as well. So he's now the sole artist in at Broken Rules. Well, no, he used to be the sole artist at Broken Rules and the art director of our next games. And then we also teamed up with Martin Pickelmeier. He used to be, the funny thing is, he used to be one of the mentors, one of the teachers who taught us at university when we started And Yet It Moves. So he knew the game, he knew us, and he actually had his own company making iOS games called Radio Flare, I think, and Radio Flare Redux. One of them was also an IGF nominee, mobile nominee back in 2008 or something like that. But so his company closed down because his partner got a kid and wanted more stability, like less risk taking. Sure. So he's like, hey, I would be interested in teaming up with you. And we're like, yeah, sure. That's like, he's someone who we really trusted, who we really respected, and someone who we know, like he's very much, he's like a hybrid between an academic and a how do you say, practitioner, like and a doer, right? And that's really interesting, like, because he knows a lot and he's got all this theoretical background, but he's also really interested in just tinkering with stuff and working on it. So then we were five co-founders, and we were set up to work on something new. And to do that, we started to apply for a public grant again, because that's the thing that I think it's something that we developers in Europe can use as a benefit for us, because in a sense that outweighs a lot of the negative things, that like a lot of the cons that we have based in Europe. Because the thing is that if you're in Europe, you're always a bit far away from the heart of the scene, the heart of the industry, right? Like from the core of the industry, like opinion shapers, journalists, all of those, most of them are based in the States. And if you want to network, if you want to socialize with other developers or get to know someone, you have to fly a long way, which is expensive and also very exhausting. And while it's true that nowadays we're connected through all these things, emails, hangouts, whatever, it's still something different if you meet someone person to person. But yeah, on the other side, we have still systems like in a lot of European countries. There's like public grants that kind of like try to push the creative industries in their cities. So they're not like focused solely on games, but like on creative industries in a sense. And like Canadian developers have like tax reductions, right? So every country has some kind of like thing that helps the developers. As we already have gotten one for And Yet It Moves, we were like, that really worked out well, because the cool thing is that like it takes a lot of time to apply for it and like to get all the paperwork done, but it's a process where you structure your project, where you structure your ideas, right? And you get all the stuff on paper and gets done. And then they just, if you're successful, they're not coming and telling you how to make the game, because they don't know much about games. Yeah, so we're very free to develop what we want to do, and that worked out well for And Yet It Moves. So we applied again. This time we applied for 3 games, actually. We applied for a series of 3 games that are thematically connected, but also technically connected. We wanted to share the technology that we built. We wanted to share the art style that we built, and we wanted to share the community that grows around the game between 3 games. That was the idea behind it. And
So
in the
those
end,
3 games are Chasing Aurora?
yeah, we just made 2. Chasing Aurora and Secrets of Reticon. We just made 2, mainly because both of them grew bigger than we thought, but especially Reticon grew bigger than we thought. And that's also the good thing about the public grant that we got, is that as long as you can reason about things, and as long as you're not like doing totally stupid decisions, like they are okay with changes because they know creative work is always iterative, right? You can. It was like the paperwork, the project was planned for 3 years, and in no game, like, okay, the way we work, we cannot plan for 3 years. Like we
sure.
don't know what the game will do. Like we follow the game a lot during development. Like we iterate and we change, like we throw stuff away and we change a lot of plans. And that was especially true for the development of Chasing Aurora and Secrets of Reticon. That game changed a lot during its development until it came to its final form. The only thing that always was there was flying. Like the idea about making a game about flying and about the dream of flight and how smooth and great it could feel. And
Absolutely.
putting it in 2D.
Oh, and keeping it 2D was part of the master plan.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I like 2D games.
Me
And
too.
Yeah, I feel that a lot of often there's no real use for 3D in a lot of cases. Like sometimes, of course, there is, but and arguably for flying, there is actually a very good cause to put it in 3D, because the whole motion, like like perspective scaling, that stuff that's far away moves slower, but stuff that's close to you moves really fast by. That gives you a great sense of movement and speed. But we wanted to keep it 2D and try to still distill this feeling of speed and movement in 2D as well. But yeah, so that's the thing that stayed. But originally it was a racing game, actually. Chasing Aurora was a racing game controlled
Racing
by motion
against-
control.
Really? And against, because it's birds, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's still birds against birds.
So it was
basically.
always.
But it was very much about. It wasn't so much about flying, but about diving and gliding and like soaring through winds and down cliffs and stuff like that. So and it played nice, but not good enough.
Really? Woof. That's harsh. Quick question before we move into that, because I'm very interested in how you ended up changing the game and what you didn't like about it in order for it to become what it became. But a quick question about the grant writing process. Do you have to go about crafting your game from the ground up in a different way when you're going for an artist grant, as opposed to when you're just looking to sell as many copies? Like a game like Chasing Aurora, I'm assuming it's very artful, it's very elegant, it's very subtle. It goes for simplicity without going for retro, which I think is one of the things that defines the look of a lot of your games. You haven't made a pixel art game that I'm aware of.
No.
Well,
kind
a little,
but
a little.
I can. It's a small iPad game, which we actually made when we, like I said, we made one game jam to get our artist Clemens on board. Then we made another game jam when we were deciding to work as 5 people. So before we signed basically all the paperwork and getting co-founders together, we made one game jam to see how well we work together under stressful circumstances. We made a game called Globetrotters, and it's a 4-player iPad game. It's for free on the iOS store, and it has pixel art.
Oh, cool.
Kind of pixel art, yeah.
You're right, it certainly hasn't been the look you've gone to for your bigger projects
True.
or immediately. And I always took that to be kind of a move away from things that are just strictly going to be marketable, because we all know, especially in 2010, 2011, there was a huge market for just retro pixel art, try to get people's nostalgia to get them to buy your game. And you've always seemingly shied away from that. And my guess in hearing you talk about the grant process is, if you want to get an artist grant, you don't necessarily want to be like, it looks like Mario Brothers. You might want to elevate a little bit, at least in the minds of the people who would be giving you the money.
I think it's not because of the grant, but it's more because of us. Like we definitely would have thought it to be too boring to make a pixel art game. Like all of us, in a sense, have which isn't always good actually, but have a strong focus or a strong drive for innovation and for trying something new and for trying something unique. And I think especially that Chasing Aurora and Secrets of Rayticon probably went a bit too far with being unique or being innovative. But and for the grant process, it's actually the thing is that it's kind of a balance. It's like it's a grant for creative industries, so they want you to make a commercial product. They don't want you to make art. They want you to make it so it's not an art. It's like specifically not an art grant. Like there are art grants as well in Austria, but the things we applied for was not an art grant, but like creative industries. So it was still commercial. It had to have a commercial aspect, but it also had to be unique, innovative. So if it would have just made I don't know, retro Mega Man clone or something like that, I think it wouldn't have, we probably wouldn't have received the grant. So there's a balance between being innovative but also trying for a commercial product.
Very interesting. So moving forward, you feel like, I'm still trying to, so it wasn't good to have the birds racing, and it wasn't fun, so you took out tell us about that.
Yeah, like we had a lot of play tests in like local game events. So what we also started with a very good friend, and also someone who actually a guy who did level design for And Yet It Moves. We were like, he started as an intern, and then he was on the team actually, and we together with him we started a public gaming event where like once a month or every 2 months we play games together with like a public, like we set up TVs and screens and consoles and at some spot, at some studio or whatever, and people come and play and drink beers, and we use those to play test our games a lot. It was fun to play it, but it was always a bit too hard to control. Like there were a few people that really got into it, but a lot of people who also didn't get into it because the barrier of entry was a bit too high. And we also, that actually was kind of a team split decision, like something that split the team a bit, but we talked a lot about it. And in the end, we made 2 prototypes. So we refined the one with the motion control racing, and then we made another one that wasn't about racing, and played with the sticks. So the flying was with the sticks and with the buttons, and which had all of the core gameplay features that Chasing Aurora had already inside. So you fly with the stick, and you can drop down with a button and build up speed, like by dropping down and then soaring off. And it was kind of actually, yeah, the game mode is still in Chasing Aurora as well. So in Chasing Aurora, there's this one game mode where there's no split screen, but there's one kind of beacon, on a chain, there's a jam kind of thing. We call it a beacon, but I think it's more like a jam. And it's on a chain, and everyone tries to grab the chain, and the bird that has the chain has control over the camera. So the camera follows the bird that has the chain. And what you're trying to do is fly as far away from the others so the others drop off the outside of the camera. And that was the other prototype we had. And we made a play test, and our feeling back then was that that prototype was stronger and easier to get into. People were more excited while playing it. And so we decided to go for this one. And that's what we, like, very soon after starting working with 5 people, we realized that we're all very strong personalities, and it's hard to find a decision process with just talking about stuff, because talking about games is kind of awkward. It's like always, it's too far away from the game, right? Like you talk about something, but in each and everyone's mind, it plays different. So what we decided to do as quickly as possible is build stuff and play it, and then we can talk way better about it. There's actually a talk from the guy who did Sword and Sorcery.
Oh, sure. Super Brothers.
Yeah, he had a talk at one GDC. I think it's called Less Talk, More Rock.
Oh, yeah,
where he very much outlined the process that it's difficult and often not good to talk about games and about game design issues. So you should try to build it and play it, and then it's easier to talk about it and make decisions.
Sure.
So that's how it came about that we ditched the motion-controlled racing bird.
I find it a quick observation. You made a mode where it's multiplayer, and one person who gets the chain gets to control the situation, and everyone else has to fall off. And you were arguing about who got to control who would get to put that mode in or not. Like you made a mode about that decision-making process and who would be in power at the time. That's pretty fun.
That's an interesting observation, but yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I have this overarching theory that we can't help but put whatever ideas we're having, whatever problems we're having, whatever feelings we're having into what we're inspired to make in games in particular. So I tend to see these things. Sometimes I'm reading into things too much, but every once in a while,
I can totally see that that's probably something that was happening. Yeah, because really it was difficult for all of us to find a process that felt right. And like giving everyone the feeling that he can fulfill his creative vision and his creative drive in our projects, because we were still working for little money. And what do you get out of it? You want to make what you want to make, right? And it's hard to make these decisions. But in the end, what we realized during development of Chasing Aurora is that we really, 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 really need clear responsibilities. And so we decided to label roles for everyone and give everyone a certain area of power, like decision power. So and we also tried to have someone who is the vision keeper of a game as well, that definitely helped developing stuff a lot. And it's something that I tell everyone. Like if I meet young developers nowadays, the first thing I tell them is try to make. If you want to found a company, don't do 5 co-founders. Like 5 co-founders is really too many, and like there's just too many cooks spoiling the broth because decision making gets too hard and you have to make compromises. And sometimes it's not good to make compromises. Sometimes it's good to have a clear vision and to have someone who dictates these things, because game development is still so much about gut feeling. Like sometimes you just cannot argue about why it should be like it is. You just know, or you just feel it should be like it is, and you hope that you're right. And often you're actually right. Like nowadays we really try to follow these gut feelings. Like if we get into discussions and someone tries to argue too much about it, and we say, like, in the end, it's like, how do you feel about it? Do you want it like that? Do you really think that's how it should to be? And if you can trust your gut, I think in the end you will make the better games.
Huh, interesting. And you call that role the vision keeper. That is so
The
much
vision
nicer
keeper.
than director or producer,
Yeah,
boss. No, they keep the vision and they like
the
hold
vision
it.
keeper. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I don't know where it comes from. I'm sure it came somewhere, but yeah, I think it's something that works well in at least in our process, because like we still want to talk with everyone who's on the team. We still want people to have influence on the game and to feel their personality in the game. But the vision keeper is just the one that tries to make the hard decisions when it needs to be done, like and when you have the feeling that the game splits apart, or gets ripped apart. Like that's a hard thing to say, but there's like forces that one wants the game drawn in this direction, the other one in that direction, and then the vision keeper is the one who should bring it back to the path where it has to go. And we tried that with Secrets of Raticon as well, a lot. I'm now, like, looking retrospectively at the game, I think that it was still trying to be too many things at once.
And for people who haven't played them, what are the big differences between Chasing Aurora, which was this initial, just a bright, joyful, enjoy the physics and the feeling of flight, and it was very pure in that sense, versus Secrets of Raticon, which you made after Chasing Aurora, after taking some criticism, some of course a lot of praise as well, but you had gotten all this feedback and you had to figure out how we're going to integrate this feedback into the next iteration. So what are the differences between them?
So the main difference is that Chasing Aurora is a local multiplayer couch party game, but it's definitely like a thing that you play with friends on one couch. And Secrets of Raticon is the single player exploration adventure game that you immerse yourself in alone in a dark room in front of one screen. But so yeah, that's the main difference. And originally we wanted to do both in one game. So originally we wanted to do a game that has a local multiplayer aspect and a single player exploration adventure part. But then the Wii U launch came up, and we had to make a decision if we want to be a part of the launch lineup. Again, something that's kind of nice to have in the credits, to have made a launch title for a console, which is even more crazy than making a console title, but from the development standpoint. So we were like, yeah, let's try doing a launch title. Nintendo was really strong with the Wii. We like what the Wii U does, especially what it can do to Chasing Aurora, because we have a second screen and we have a fifth player, and it's a console that's set up for local multiplayer games. So we were like, okay, this is opportunity to take and to pick up. We had good connections to Nintendo still. Dan Edelman was still working at Nintendo. But also the others, like, we've just started to know people because we worked on the platform already. So, and then I think when did the Wii U launch?
2012?
2012, yeah, sure.
I think so.
2012, yeah.
I think so.
2012. So I think, so we were working on Chasing Aurora and its single player experience. And then in summer, I think June 2012, we made the decision to just focus on the local multiplayer and try to get it done in 6 months, basically. Well, less than 6 months, because the launch was in November, right? I think in the States it was November. I think we submitted the final version like a week before launch or something like that. Yeah. Which was possible because it was a digital title, but still, it was immensely tight. But yeah, so we made this decision, and then we let the single player, which was quite far. I think we had like 3 environments, like not really well, they were kind of levels, but long levels in a sense, playable, not all artistically done, like visually decorated, but in a playable form. And we started focusing solely on the local multiplayer modes, and that was fun to play and was stressful to develop, but interesting experience definitely. Like the hardware still changes while you develop for it, so these are things that are really, and the API, like the programmable interface to the hardware, changes, and you get new builds and suddenly nothing works anymore and you have to figure out why. But Nintendo was super supportive and responsive in all the questions, and also, like, for a console, you have to go to this submission procedure, and they check your game if it's good enough. And like before the Wii U launch, they really were working. I don't know, like they must have been working a lot, because like they were really fast in turning around, sending us bugs and stuff like that. So that was a super exciting time, and then we launched, and it didn't go that well, which really happened to many Wii U games, I guess. But also Chasing Aurora had its issues because of these time constraints, of course, especially the single player thing, right? Like we, in very last minute mode, we started adding the single player mode because Nintendo felt like it's not good to have local multiplayer only, and it would be great to have some kind of single player in there. And we kind of liked the idea as well that we put in, but of course, if you like buy Chasing Aurora and then you don't have friends around, you just play the single player, it just doesn't feel very substantial, right? Like it's a fun little mode, but it's nothing that could make up one game in a sense. So I think that was the main, like most from the critics, what we heard is that the multiplayer stuff is really fun, but the single player is just boring. And we couldn't argue with that. It's like, yeah, of course it is. It's like a simple thing. And everybody praised the art again, because Clemens is really a great artist. Like you said, like he can focus stuff down and what is really necessary. Like he can build this simple thing that looks simple, but is actually really complex and really rich in what it conveys. And the worlds of Chasing Aurora and also the characters were really interesting to people. So we thought like, okay, this is what we nailed. We wanted to do a single player thing anyway. We wanted the idea to keep the technology, keep the art style, and work on another game. And even though Chasing Aurora didn't bring us the money that we might have needed to continue how do you say, like comfortably, or finally getting some money, like getting enough money to really live off it, because we were still, like when development drags on, the first thing we do is we cut our own salary, and it works. Like we've always paid us a salary, but a lot of times it was too low to really live off it. Which is also, I think we were also lucky in the sense that we had good partners that supported us in that. And my wife, for example, is a doctor, and she kept, like for lots of times, she's bringing in the money that keeps the family running, and I couldn't do it without her. Like if she wouldn't earn as much, I couldn't be an indie developer. And I think that's something that people often forget, or even that, like if I say Broken Rules is still alive and it's still living, is the hard truth, I would say, is that if you would really be dependent financially on it, we would have had to close down Broken Rules already before. But sometimes it's good that life has other, how do you say, like other support as well, right? And I also got my first son in 2010, so that was before Chasing Aurora happened. And two of my other co-founders, Peter and Jan, also got babies before Chasing Aurora came around. And then after Chasing Aurora, I got my second child. So we were all kind of like really working on getting good work and life balance on, and we really we were really successful with that, which is also something I'm proud of, is that at Broken Rules sometimes we do crunch, but usually we really don't work crazy hours, and it kind of works. And we need to, because if you don't earn as much, we at least need to like step in, taking care of the kids, and we all of us do that a lot of the time. Kids are really important to all of us. I think now Broken Rules has 5 co-founders and 6 babies, like 6 children.
Wow. So it's a studio of dads who take care of their kids and then create things for
In between.
and I'm a relatively new dad myself, and I already see a lot of parallels between like, how am I going to design this game and how am I going to design the life of this kid? And I want them to experience things in a certain order, and I want them to be able to learn. I want them to be comfortable yet challenged. I've heard it from quite a few dads who are game developers that they see parallels all the time, and it makes them better developers. They say that they have to really consider the experience of somebody else who's in different shoes, coming from a different perspective, who is relying on you to make the world for them what it could be in order for them to live and experience and grow. So makes a lot of sense now that you're telling me this. I hadn't guessed that you were all dads, because you look like 21. You look like youthful,
I'm 33.
No way.
Yeah.
It's that Viennan genes. It's the air in Vienna is keeping you sprightly and youthful.
Maybe it is, but thank you very much. No, I went to this year. I've been to GDC again in San Francisco, and I think it was the first since 4 years or 3 years or something like that, because going to GDC with kids was also just not possible, with babies especially. Like I haven't been traveling, haven't been around at the festivals for 3 or 4 years, and I was kind of nervous in the sense that maybe I've already lost connection to the indie scene or the developer scene, but people still knew me, and I did feel a bit old, like, because there's a lot of young faces, especially at the indie scene, right? Like the indie developer scene is always very young and vibrant, and like there's new faces popping up, but in a sense, a lot of people are growing up and getting kids, and I do think that it's like,
I mean, you're absolutely right that there's a lot of new faces. There's people who tell me, "Oh yeah, I grew up on Sub Holmes. I started watching that when I was like 16, and now I'm making my first game." So that's a strange thing for me. But there's a lot of people who've stuck around that don't give up and stick with it and continue to grow and keep it viable and financially successful. So there's definitely room for you guys in this
for old devs. Well, I still don't feel old. Like but I have to say, like, I mean, yeah, it's been 7 years now since we founded Broken Rules, and like we said in the beginning, 9 years since my first GDC. Like when I told some of the, like, it's my first GDC, and it's like, yeah, my first was like 9 years ago. Then you kind of feel old, of course, already. But yeah. But where were we? Kids, yeah. So it's great because they structure your process. You really have to focus when working, and we time track, like I especially, but I think most of the others at Broken Rules as well, time track their working hours pretty strict, or pretty in detail. But it helped me very much to know how long am I working, how much time do I spend on the game, and like what did I actually get done. And it makes me, I think it does, for me, it really works. Like it makes me more productive because I know, okay, now I have 2 hours or 3 hours and I have to get this task done, and now I'll have to do it. And then and for a lot of time, a lot of beginning of my parenthood, I think I worked around 25, 30 hours a week or something like that. So I really turned that down and tried to make it count, though. And to really, and now I'm back up to like 40 hour week, but it feels productive, and it works because my kids are getting bigger. But I'm getting my third one in actually in 10 days.
Oh my goodness! Congratulations!
Yeah.
That's so exciting. And I just realized that you feel old going to GDC, and one of the games you're working on now is called Old Man's Journey. It's like I'm an old man now, looking at the hotel.
So we're back at why we're making games that are actually about our lives. I think that works very well.
Yeah, I hope we could get into that. But if I before we move to that, Secrets of Raidicon, did that ever come out on console as well?
No.
Clicking. I didn't think so. Why was that it didn't come to consoles?
Well, I mean, so for us, after Chasing Aurora, we really felt that the Wii U wouldn't be financially sustainable for us to focus on it solely. And we felt like we kind of wanted to go back to our roots, which was, and yet it moves on PC, on Steam. And while developing Raidicon, we also felt that it was really a game that's more PC gamer, that works better for PC gamers. We were looking into PS4 development and in contact with PS4 as well, like with Nick Sutner, who's also a great guy. Like it's really nice that like the consoles have these cool, interesting people that are really interested in the games actually, and are also interested in indie developers and know what you're talking about. Like that's something that really changed since our start, I think, is that like with Dan Edelman or also Nick Sutner, it's just people that know what games are all about. But when did the PS4 launch?
2013, I think.
13 at December 2013, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So we really didn't want to do another launch title. So we were really too afraid of getting again into this technological struggles of getting the thing running on a console. So we thought we keep the PS4 thing in the loop, but we don't want to do it on launch. Back then we were planning to launch it at the end of 2013. In the end, Raidicon launched in April 2014. But
okay. So it wasn't really that long ago then. It was about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Seems like so much has happened since then. What's
2
interesting?
years is a long time, right?
It can be. It's interesting to me that the anticipation of misery that would come from a launch port and just consoles in general started to set in, and yet you spend time doing ports of other people's games as well.
That's because for Chasing Aurora, we got a really brilliant coder on the team, programmer on the team, who was like our low-level coder and who really had a lot of fun diving into hardware and fixing, optimizing stuff and getting down and dirty on consoles, basically. He is a really great guy. He doesn't work for Broken Rules anymore because in the end we were just too we wanted to keep it more flexible and didn't want to keep pulling in new projects and new work for hire stuff. And he had a great opportunity. He worked on, I don't know if I can say it, but I'll just say he worked on the most anticipated game that's going to come out soon. So it's an indie game that's going to come out soon. So, but yeah, he had a great opportunity to change somewhere else. So he went. He left Broken Rules, but back after Chasing Aurora, he was still part of Broken Rules, and so we got the offer from Drinkbox. Asked us, Drinkbox Studios from Canada, who asked if we wanted to port Guacamelee, because they knew we just launched on Wii U, so we know the platform, and they were getting their own game to all consoles, basically, to all platforms, and they were running their own engine. We were also running our own engine. Yeah, I've never said that, but for Chasing Aurora and Secrets of Raidicon, we built our own engine called Ginkgo, which was the code base, the technological base that we shared across the. Also, one of the points why we wanted to do multiple projects, like 3 projects, is because we wanted to share this technology and make we didn't want to make a game engine just for one game, but we also didn't want to work with another proprietary engine after and yet it moves and short game builder. We wanted to do our own stuff. So we made our own engine. And I think that's also why Drinkbox, like we met them at PAX or something. Like again, the indie scene, the friendly fellow colleagues that you meet, mostly in North America and not in Europe. But that's why I think it's also really worth it for European developers to go there, like to go to GDC, go to PAX, go to Indicate. And you don't know, like just talk to the people and be a nice and friendly guy or girl, and people will talk to you and you will meet people and you will first think they're just friends, but later on you'll realize they're actually business partners, or how do you say, they can become business partners. Like I think that's a great thing about the indie scene, is that it's well connected. We don't have much secret stuff we don't talk about, and we help each other out, and we also like to work with each other. Like it's really nice to work with a fellow indie developer because they know how you work, how you feel, what the challenges are, and so on. And the cool thing about Guacamole is, how do you pronounce Guacamole?
Just like that. That's the way everyone should pronounce it forever. Guacamole. It sounds so nice the way you say it. I think it's melee in
Guacamole.
in
Yeah, that sounds better.
American accent, but who needs Americans? Much better the way you say it. And you were saying the good thing about guacamole.
So yeah, it's like they actually already had it running on VU, but it just had like stuff that didn't work out, and like it wasn't optimized and all of this. But basically we got it and it was already running on the VU. And then we were just kept working on it in parallel while they developed it, and made sure it always runs in the VU, optimized a few stuff, and went through the whole submission process, which does involve a lot of paperwork. And if you've already done it once, it goes better, right? And that was a really great partnership, and it was also quite successful actually. Like Guacamole sold really nicely on the Wii U, and I'm pretty sure even better on other consoles. But for us, it was a really financially successful project and port. I think it's kind of something that Nintendo gamers can really appreciate, right? Like it's a game has high production values, but and it kind of plays on with familiar formulas, like it's a platformer, but it mixes it up with like melee attacks, and it's really well executed, and there's lots of content, and that's just something that runs well on Nintendo consoles. It's a game that the Nintendo crowd can appreciate because it's close to what Nintendo kind of builds, right? Like in quality.
It was heavily influenced by Metroid and
yeah, like it has a lot of influences.
Sure,
from Nintendo side.
So do you think that's one of the splits between like who's going to buy a game on console in general, or maybe Nintendo in particular, versus PC? Do you feel like with PC you can make a smaller game that focuses on just some particular mechanics, but really has them flourish and expands upon them, and that's going to find its audience, versus console, where unless you throw everything in your game and it's definitely 15 hours long and has co-op and blah blah blah, it's gonna have a tougher time finding people to get it?
I do think so, yeah. Like I do think that on console, the production quality in all areas, like not only the visual but also like the ease of use, the user experience, and the focus of the game mechanics and these things really, I think, have to have a different level to succeed, because on the PC side, people are just more used to tweaking stuff and to getting to know, like learning things, like really putting effort into like even if I now want to run a game on Steam, I have to. I don't know. It always takes way too long, and like I just want to play it on a console, right? Like I have to tweak the controller settings, and then if you look at the Steam controller, which is a great controller, but like the possibilities that are there just speak for itself, right? Like there's an audience that really wants to dive into things and really wants to learn stuff and really wants to take its time to master certain things. Like you have to master this controller to actually play it. If you take any console controller, you just pick it up and play it, right? And it will work. And I think that's something that does. It's the same for games as well. Like on the PC side, you can get people. You don't have to hold their hands as much, which was our hope for Secrets of Raticon, because it's really a game where we don't hold the hands of the player, and we want them to explore it by themselves and learning stuff without us telling them. And that's also why we thought that it probably is something, if it's going to be successful somewhere, it will be successful on PC first, and then we can see if we bring it to consoles. And again, Secrets of Raticon was financially not that successful that we could bring it to consoles. And it was a game that really split the critics. Again, some really liked it. Some really felt it was we just threw them in a world and left them alone there. And then, yeah.
Really?
And
I am I paused dramatically in a true state of shock, because I've never read a bad review of Secrets of Raticon. I'm sure I haven't read as many reviews of it as you have, but I
guess I read all of them. Yeah, probably. Well, I don't read all of them, but like I get like notifications if you get reviews through a system.
Right. So you know they happened. You take a peek at them.
I take a peek of them, and sometimes I read them, and sometimes I don't. But yeah, I get a feel for the reviews.
I'm trying to remember when Demon Souls came out. So I was just, before the show started, I was trying to organize myself. I have all this stuff I have to write, and I have a cold. I'm a little disorganized in general right now. So I'm like spacing out while I'm trying to focus. And I noticed there's this Twitter account that I've been following for a little bit called It's Like Dark Souls. And it collects all of the times someone will compare a burrito. They'll be like, this isn't your grandma's burrito. This burrito takes a lot of guts to get through it. It's the Dark Souls of burritos. Or, this new kitchen table you got, it's going to fight you back. It's not going to let you just put things on it easily. It's the Dark Souls of kitchen tables. So people love Dark Souls now. They want things to be Dark Souls. People will sell a game on the fact that it's similar to Dark Souls and that it's unforgiving and it expects you to figure it out on its own. Secrets of Raticon. It's like Dark Souls of being a bird.
Yeah.
Birds Dark Souls. All the birds should be playing it right now and being like, this is my Dark Souls. I expected it to be critically acclaimed all over the place, but some people said it was too hard. It was too...
I think the main thing is, because you're right, it's like Demon Souls and Dark Souls were definitely an influence on during the development of Secrets of Raticon. And it's also it's definitely also the inspiration why we dared to put players in the position that they have to learn for themselves and that they have to try and die and then figure it out by themselves and be and there's no map in Secrets of Raticon, which is one of the things that comes up in every bad review. It's like, really? There's no map, but it's an exploration game, so how shall I explore the world if there's no map?
You draw a map, you dingus. Now I'm getting mad. I'm in fierce defense of Secrets of Raticon. For me, it is much more exciting to be truly given a world that does not explore for me, that I have to do all the exploration myself. The Witness, people grabbing pen and paper and having to jot stuff down the Witness in order to keep track of it. The original Metroid, which I love. I love the following games as well that gave you an auto map, but there's something special about going back to the original Legend of Zelda. You had to figure out the maps on your own too. It allows the player to truly embrace the rewards that come from exploring on their own, because they were not given any advanced numbers on how to do it. So you feel like a total champ when you pull it off.
Yeah, and we like that's what we were aiming for. That they built their own map in their head, and because of that, you have to explore more carefully, but also more attentively, right? You have to be there in the world. And we also did a lot of tests, like we did play tests where we let them play level, and then afterwards we asked them to draw the map because we wanted to know, like, does it actually work? And usually people knew kind of where stuff was, and it felt like it's a world that teaches itself well as well. But I think the main thing, like in a lot of game mechanics and in a lot of the game design, Rayticon is like Dark Souls, but from the way. But there was another thing we wanted to get. We wanted to transport you with Secrets of Rayticon, which is the feeling of being in this lush, beautiful nature, wilderness, right? Mm-hmm. The wilderness of the Alps. Like that was one of the themes that we had in Rayticon, and I think the thing that we also did is that during the PR and marketing phase, we focused very, very strongly on the beautiful world and the lush scenes and like the wilderness, but it never really looked or felt dangerous. And I think that's one thing, is that we had players that came in to the game, to Rayticon, not knowing very much about it, but maybe seeing the trailer or a few screenshots, and expecting a more relaxed game, a more relaxed experience, something more zen-like maybe. And flying, right? Flying is also something that's kind of like, let's fly around this beautiful Alps, and then boom, there's some bird coming in and killing you in a second scene, basically. And then you're kind of like, what just happened? And I think that's one of the things that made it hard for a lot of people to get into this Dark Souls mindset, because they expected something different. And it's something that I meant before, like if there's things that kind of like pull the game into different directions. So we had 3 themes in Rayticon. One was the playful flight, and the other was this wilderness, which had like it was really about being alone in the wilderness, being at the mercy of nature. So that was already kind of tough and hard. And the third was the balance between human progress and nature, and what happens when humans when civilizations happen in nature, and the toll they take on nature, basically. Like, but really there was themes that pushed the game into this beautiful, relaxing game, and then there were themes that were pulling it more into the Dark Souls area. And in the end, I think that's what made it. That's exactly why critics were split. Because for the people that were into the Dark Souls thing, like the explore on your own, be left on your own, find out how to deal with predators. Do you kill them? Do you just fly away from them? Like, we left a lot of it open, and you can kill them, or you can just try to get away from them, and they will leave you alone as well. And then the people that came in for the playful flight and the beautiful nature. And that's why I think it was split.
Sure. But the Dark Souls audience, I hate to even call them that, because Dark Souls isn't the first game to do this. Like, the first Metroid did this stuff too. Maybe we should refer to it that way. But anyway, they got it. Some people got it. And then it would be interesting to see what games the people who did not like Rayticon, what games they enjoy, whether it's more on the power fantasy side, or whether the peaceful pacifist side, whether it just wasn't a game that suited them. A game like Rayticon, I'd imagine that's not it's not a AAA marketing game. It's not a game that, as a writer for a website, like if I were to write about Rayticon, I would be thinking, well, I'm doing this because I'm interested in it, and the people who are interested in it. There's not going to be millions of them, but the people who are really going to appreciate it and think of Destructoid as a site to go to look for games that you wouldn't necessarily see. But I don't think it would be like the most profitable post I would write if I was going by page views. I would write about Minecraft or write about Angry Birds or something if I just wanted to bring people in. So Raidacon, I wonder which reviewers ended up getting that assignment. That would be interesting for me to look into. I don't think Destructoid ever got to review it, actually.
I'm pretty sure it did.
We did? I'll have to go
I can
look.
look it up if you want.
Oh no, I don't want to deal with the unpredictable. What might happen if you see?
But I think it did. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but I imagine is. But I'm at least Chasing Aurora or Raticon did get a review on Destructoid.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Chasing Aurora did, and I remember the reviewer saying like, "I love it. I want this in a single player game because I don't have anyone to play with." That's another thing I wanted to mention. I think Chasing Aurora could have made tons of money if it had come out on just the regular Wii at just the right time. Like the Nintendo console audience has been such this bizarre, fluctuating group where like 1 second people will buy anything that's on the Wii, even WiiWare. World of Goo made like $1 million in like a couple of months or something.
It's a genius game, though.
Yeah, I did. Well, so is in my opinion. So, but then the audience suddenly like migrated and was like, no, we don't want to play multiplayer games on the Wii anymore. And then the Wii U came out, and people wanted like HD single player stuff, like you were saying. Guacamelee was a great fit for the Wii U because for whatever reason it drew in this like single player crowd that wanted high production values. I still think Raidacon, like how much would I, if I was to invest in Broken Rules, how much money would you need to put Raidacon on the Wii U? Because I'm so curious about how it would do at this point in the console's career, where the install base has grown. People love stuff like Mario Maker, which is super hard a lot of the time, a 2D experience. Like I feel like it might do differently now than it would have at launch. How much?
Well, if you want to, I can do a little. How do you say it? Like a offer for you later on.
Yeah, let's do an offer later. That'll be fun. I've got some money.
But we tried putting Raticon on the Wii U, and because we had the engine already running, right? And our genius low-level programmer, he's actually called Husky. All we call him Husky. Our genius Husky was still on the team, and he really wanted to do it, and he actually invested his own private time to get it on the console because he's great. Husky, I love you. But so he tried to, and in the end, we like Radicon's levels are kind of big. Like we load a lot of the level right, like upfront because it's no problem on the PC, and we have a lot of physical stuff going on there. Like it's all based on boxed 2D's physics engine, and all of the trees are physical, like you can move them and stuff like that. And what we realized is that we would need to do some serious rewrite of the physical issue to get our big levels running on the Wii U, and we would need to change some fundamental things in the engine because we just, on PC, you focus on different optimization things than on consoles. And in the end, we just decided, okay, it would be too much time, too much effort. I'm sure it would be doable, but it would just be too much time, too much effort to do it. And currently, I don't know. I mean, maybe the NX, maybe the next Nintendo.
I wonder.
But the Wii U seems kind of isn't it going to come out this year, the next console? Or is it?
No, there's talk of that.
Or next
there's
year?
talk. Well, all the talk has pointed towards this year. But if assuming the NX is backwards compatible with the Wii U shop, maybe they'll even share the same shop. That would be smart. I think it's still possible for a Wii U game on the eShop to sell. Oh, I don't know.
It is possible. Like what I said, Guacamelee did really. It was financially sustainable project. Like and I think also for Drinkbox, but of course it was also on many other platforms on there as well.
Sure.
But I feel very honored that you even think about something.
Yeah. That would be fun for me, and it would be a fun game for me selfishly to play on the gamepad, where I often play because.
Maybe we could put a map on the gamepad.
Whoa! I want the option to turn it off because
Yeah.
I have a pure Raycon experience myself. But yeah, good point. Good thinking. What? We only have 3 minutes left. That went so fast.
It did.
Can you tell us anything about what you're thinking about, your decision making, your worries, your hopes, your dreams when it comes to the game currently called Old Man's Journey? Like even the name.
Even the name, Old Man's Journey. Yeah, it's actually a game about family. So, which is why we're doing it right now. So in that sense, again, it's a personal thing. It's very much about. It's a story about an old man who left his family, and he's kind of going back for reconciliation. And that's what it's kind of the feelings that it wants to get across as well, is that we want to reach an audience like me, basically, like, you know, I call them grown-up gamers right now, but I don't know if that's a good thing. But it's kind of like characters that you can connect to and that you can that you find interesting in the little time that you spent with them, because what I really experience as well is that I don't have much time to play anymore, like long games and all these things. So when I play on the couch after my kids are in bed, and I don't have much time because I'm tired. So I play like 15 minutes, half an hour, something like that. And usually I take a book because I read a book and it feels I get more immersed in the words, and it's more interesting to me in my current situation. So in a lot of sense, Old Man's Journey is a game for the reading nook, like the couch, right? The place where you read. Like it's something that you pick up to immerse yourself in a beautiful world with interesting characters, and that you want to follow along. So you travel with this old man, and while you travel, you will learn the story of him and his family. And it's a puzzle game, but it's not a challenging puzzle game. Like it's something that you can play and that will give you aha moments. But for most gamers, it will be something you can kind of walk through. Well, not really walk through, but you know, it's not designed to be super challenging, because I think on the couch, I just want to be in this world that I'm in, and I kind of want to relax and sit back and enjoy the experience. So yeah, I'm currently calling it a serene puzzler, or sometimes we call it a puzzle adventure with a narrative centric. We're still figuring out how to talk about it. And it will be on mobile, because I also think that it's actually an iPad game mostly, but it will come out for phones as well, because nowadays you can't just bring out an iPad game, right? Sure. But it's like again, it's the ease of, like, if I'm on the couch and I have 20 to 30 minutes before I fall asleep, I grab a book and I open it and I read it. And that's kind of the same experience I find with grabbing an iPad or an iPhone, is that I just grab it and I start it and I play it. And I don't have to set up, like I have a projector at home, so I have to start the projector, get the stuff down, start the console, and then it wants to update itself, and then I have to go to bed. So in that sense as well, it's like, I think the book comparison works nicely, because it's it's like it's a thing that you take and you just open it and play it and experience this world and the characters and hopefully connect to it if you're kind of in the same life phase like I am, I think. Sure. Well, but I do think that gamers grow up, right? Like a lot of, I mean, maybe they've already been old when I was younger, and now I see it because I'm myself. But I do feel that a lot of, like, there's a space for different stories, different characters, besides the power fantasy, basically. And it's really not a power fantasy game. That's why it's called Old Man's Journey, right? It doesn't sound like a power fantasy already. And you're playing an old man. So, yeah. Yeah, in that sense, really, I think the opportunity now also, which has been shown already by Gun Home and Firewatch and all these kind of games, right, is that there's a space for games that put you in really beautiful, immersive worlds, but also have interesting characters and stories that you want to know about them, like and that you can connect to as a human being on that sense.
Sure. It's funny. Do I have an issue handy? I don't. Nintendo Force magazine's another thing I write for. And just last night, I was up late trying to explain this game called Giftpia, which was a GameCube game that I'm writing about that never came out in the United States. It had a 500 million yen budget. Shigeru Miyamoto was a producer, and yet it never came out in the United States because there was no action. You played a young man who is in the process of his coming of age ceremony, but he sleeps through it because he's irresponsible. So then he gets arrested and put a ball and chain on his leg, and they actually pixelate out his face, like on the show Cops, because he's such a terrible criminal because he didn't want to grow up. Such an interesting premise. You're already smiling about it. It's funny. It's interesting. Totally bombed. Such a sad thing. But that was 2003. We are now in 2016, where I think gamers are the same age they've always been, but we've had enough of the power fantasy where we're hungry for something more. I know there are thousands of power fantasy games I can pick up at any time. There's so many of them in my backlog, I'm never even going to get through to them. But how many games have I played about an old man?
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe two, none, maybe none. So you're giving people something they've never gotten before, and I think that alone, like Firewatch, nobody knew exactly what they were going to get from that. And
and I really liked it. Like Firewatch was, like you said, like it was. You didn't really know what it was about. You just kind of knew that it was a slow, narrative-focused experience, and that was really, really great. Like that was a game I played again for like the first game for a long time that I finished, I think, in a sense, and also like this beautiful world and the beautiful art style, and for Old Man's Journey again, I think Clemens is doing a great job of getting this lush, hand-drawn feeling stuff that you actually would want to hang on your walls, basically, from a printout. And I think that's also something that can reach an audience outside of gamers as well.
Sure.
And something that can more easily happen on mobile, like on iOS or Android, than consoles.
Sure. I think that we're over time. But I have this final thought I can't help but want to spit out. So interesting what you said about how when you settle in to play games at the end of the night, you don't necessarily want to have to go through a 10-minute production to get there. If you just sneak in a game on your phone, you don't mentally have to commit to the fact, like, I'm going to spend the next 3 hours playing a game. If I have to do that at this point, I just won't play a game. I need to be able to tell myself I'm going to play this for 10 minutes, and maybe that 10 minutes will expand into 3 hours. Much easier to let your mind sneak itself into being allowed to play a game when it's on your phone or on a handheld. So I'm very optimistic about this Old Man's Journey. And you're not sure you're going with that name, or you're pretty sure?
I'd say 98%.
That's pretty darn good. So people can follow Broken Rules on Twitter. You've got a Twitter account.
Yeah, that's that's definitely the place where we're most active. We're not always that active, but if we're active on Twitter. Yeah.
And they can find your games at brokenrules.es.
Brokenrule.es, yeah.
Oh, my mistake. I was very close. Brokenrule.es. A lot of things on there. And you talk about other games. You talk about things that you're just interested in gaming in general there. So it's a fun site to go to discover new things in general. You can get, and yet it moves. Still on, if you got the Wii U, you can boot up the old Wii shop still. I bought something on there not that long ago, actually. It still works. Yeah. It's I think I bought an old SNK fighting game like Last Blade or something.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so it still works. Yet It Moves, published by DNA, is on phones. How did that sound?
iOS, only iOS.
Only iOS. Did it do good or not good?
It do all right, but like it's mostly
right.
DNA's money, so they paid us up front for doing it, so that's all right. Like it was really like they paid us to port our own game to iOS, so it was a really nice work for hire job. Yeah.
No kidding.
Really awesome.
Secrets of Radicon and Chasing Aurora are still out there, and I would encourage people to check them out. They're very fun to play. And I guess that's about it. Any other place they should look for you? Anything else they should do?
No, I don't know. I don't remember anything right now. It's already getting late. But
That's okay.
I
You've
think
done a wonderful
you
job.
mentioned it all.
Oh, I did. Good.
Yeah.
As for me, I'm at TronNots on Twitter. You can follow me about things I'm doing. You can watch the show later on YouTube, youtube.com/SupHolmes Show. You can listen to it on Libsyn and iTunes. I think this is like episode 183 or something. Wow. Yeah. 186, my mistake. So we've really done it, guys. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.